what's up? Seniesa Estrada here, and I just want to give a huge special shout out to the relay. Thank you so much for all of the continuous support, and thank you for all of the support during and after and before every single fight.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. Well, very recently, two-division champion and pound-for-pound alum Seniesa Estrada expressed her discontent, her frustrations over the fact that she can't seem to corner another champion to unify with at either minimum weight or light flyweight. Seniesa Estrada is calling Yokasta Valle's bluff. Costa Rica's Valle, who holds the IBF 105-pound title, took exception to some recent comments made by Estrada on social media regarding how none of the champions in or around her weight division are willing to fight her. Estrada said that they should strip us of our titles because we're not willing to fight. I responded, I said, hey, I'm here, Valle. The ring's number 3 ranked female strawweight, said of her rival. 29-year-old Valle, a Nicaragua native based in Costa Rica, went as far as to say that Estrada's comments came off as arrogant and that she was willing to unify against the unbeaten American, who holds titles in 2 divisions simultaneously, minimum weight and light flyweight. Seniesa responded by saying, she didn't call me out. First of all, she stated, I don't know why she called me arrogant because our matchmaker, Robert Diaz, had been trying to make that fight happen 3 times already. It's always something on her side. But of course, she doesn't say that publicly. She didn't call me out. I've been asking to fight her. And like I said, all these champions are defending their belts and fighting people who aren't even ranked. But these organizations are allowing it, which is frustrating. In recent days, figureheads from the IBF, WBC, WBO, and the WBA met to supposedly formulate a possible agreement in search of a standardized process for which world title unifications can happen. Seniesa said it's never going to work because either way, they're going to do what they want. Estrada wants to face the best, including WBC junior flyweight titleist Yesenia Gomez of Mexico, against whom she yearns to unify. However, like Valle, her calls seem to have fallen on deaf ears. And Yesenia Gomez, her promoter, has been purposefully putting off the fight and telling Robert that he wants Yesenia to have some other fights before fighting me. So basically, they're holding the belts hostage. It's not right. I want to fight her, and I hope to fight her next year if the WBC makes it happen. It's really frustrating because somebody like me, who wants to fight the best and wants these titles and wants to unify, doesn't get these fights because the organizations aren't doing their jobs. And I understand Seniesa Estrada's frustration. We've documented these events for a long time now here on the channel, that in spite of Seniesa Estrada being ready, willing, and able to take on any and every champion at or around minimum weight or light flyweight, and having major financial backing, major promoter, Golden Boy Promotions by way of DAZN,
she still can't get the unification fights she wants.
That's just a testament to what I'm always telling you guys. Takes 2 to tango. It takes 2 to make a fight, but it only takes 1 to fuck it up. And what's going on here is
these girls keep choosing to fight other people.
Seniesa Estrada isn't wrong about Yesenia Gomez. Yesenia Gomez, the reigning WBC light flyweight champion, who's going to be in action later on this year in Canada against Kim Clavel on the undercard of Better Beef versus Brown. Why is it that Yesenia Gomez, a reigning champion, who didn't become a champion overnight, why is it she's more comfortable facing Kim Clavel in Canada instead of unifying with Seniesa Estrada in America?
2 things in reference to that fight.
I don't think Kim Clavel is as dangerous an opponent choice as Seniesa is, but I do think Kim Clavel is going to beat Yesenia Gomez. I think
that WBC title is going to change hands in December.
And I think that Yesenia Gomez is more willing to travel to Canada to face Kim Clavel as opposed to traveling here to the United States to face Seniesa, because Yesenia likes her chances against Kim a lot better than she likes her chances against Seniesa. I think the same applies to the former WBO minimum weight champion, Etsuko Tada. Etsuko Tada
of Japan.
She won that WBO title in December of last year, and very recently defended it in Korea.
Tried to defend it
against Vietnam's own Thi Thu Thi Nguyen. And Etsuko Tada lost the fight. She lost the title. Thi Thu Thi Nguyen of Vietnam is now the WBO's minimum weight champion. And Atsuko Tada had 10 months, count them, 10 months from the date she won that title to see about making a fight with Seniesa Estrada. Instead of doing that, she traveled to Korea for Thi Nguyen and she lost the goddamn fight.
And I don't know if that was a mandated title defense.
Though even if it was, the same applies. She still had the option of unifying with Seniesa Estrada because unification matches trump mandatories. She could have circumvented the Thi Nguyen fight by unifying with Seniesa Estrada, and she had 10 months to do it, but she decided to go the other way because in all likelihood, she liked her chances against Nguyen a lot more than she liked her chances against Seniesa, and it backfired.
She lost the title anyway.
By hook or by crook, Thi Nguyen is now the WBO's minimum weight champion. These girls are parting around Seniesa like a river around a rock!
And it's not a coincidence.
Unfortunately for Seniesa, a champion with one organization is under no obligation to unify titles with the champion of another organization. You know, the alphabets, they can't make their champions unify with each other. The hope usually is that one of those champions will prepare an incentivized offer to that other champion that will entice them to take the fight and unify.
But they have to want to.
The both of them. And it's clear that Seniesa does want to unify, but these girls, they don't.
Not with her.
I'm hoping that somebody at or around these fucking weights just finds their fucking balls and takes the goddamn fight. There's no shame in losing to Seniesa Estrada, but there is a lot of shame in going the other way and not trying altogether.
You gotta be ashamed of yourself.
And just in keeping with the theme of Golden Boy Promotions, Seniesa Estrada being a Golden Boy Promotions fighter, Golden Boy Promotions, whose deal with DAZN is supposed to end this year, Dan Rafael got answers on all topics DAZN, an in-depth interview with EVP Joe Markowski. There was a question asked, reference to Golden Boy Promotions. It's common knowledge that your contract with Golden Boy Promotions expires at the end of this year. The Ryan Gersha versus Joseph Diaz event was canceled due to injury, and you have the Munguia card coming up, but nothing else from Golden Boy in the works as far as I know. Be it a Virgil Ortiz fight or a Gilberto Ramirez fight, what is the status of DAZN's relationship with Golden Boy? Markowski himself responded by saying, I don't want to speculate where we're at with the contractual stuff. It's just not what we do, but our relationship with Golden Boy is great, and we love working with them. They deliver great value. They've got a great roster of fighters who speak to our base, who deliver value. We have a good, very, very healthy relationship with Golden Boy. We have an ongoing relationship with Golden Boy. We're planning to do lots more work with Golden Boy. We plan to do many more fights with Golden Boy in the future.
There you have it.
Straight from the horse's mouth, EVP John Markowski. A few days ago, there was a report circulating that at the end of this year, Golden Boy Promotions and DAZN would go their separate ways. We talked about that here on the channel, whereas this report, with Joe Markowski, by way of Dan Rafael, it says the exact opposite.
Okay, so he said, she said.
Though this report yields more validity than the other because this report comes from an accredited source, someone who's involved in the situation, Joe Markowski.
The previous report.
The one we talked about a few days ago here on the channel, that was by way of an inside source, quote unquote, a source that could not be accredited, could not be named, making their information highly questionable. You ask me which report I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with this one because this one came from the horse's mouth. With that being said, those of you that saw that video from a few days ago well know that I was holding out hope that Golden Boy Promotions would stay in bed with DAZN and they would continue to be their broadcast partner. In spite of what those preliminary reports indicated, I would prefer to get most, if not all, of my boxing from one place.
Boxing is fragmented enough as it is.
Top Rank on ESPN, PBC on Fox and Showtime, Matchroom by way of DAZN and Golden Boy.
Nobody wants to have to pay another monthly subscription for boxing.
And based on what that preliminary report indicated from a few days ago, it indicated that Golden Boy would be leaving DAZN and climbing into bed with Triller, potentially. There was a time when I myself believed that.
I wasn't a fan of it then, and I'm not a fan of it now.
I'd prefer they stay in business with each other. We've been hearing a lot of rumors, a lot of rumblings as of late, that the people over there at DAZN are scaling back their efforts in America, and they're focusing on the global market ever since they expanded to 200 territories around the world. It's conceivable that they might have decided to trim the fat, shed some of the old skin.
But I'd still prefer DAZN stay in business with Golden Boy.
So that when Matchroom isn't showing a card by way of the UK or the USA, perhaps Golden Boy might be showing a card of their own. It's that much more content. It's that much more value for money. In other news, per tweet from Steve Kim, so I've spoken to both sides representing Dimitri Bivol and Zurdo Ramirez. Looks like they will take separate fights on December 11th, Bivol in Russia and Ramirez on the 18th of December. The possibility is open to them to fight next year, but Bivol's side believes there is a possibility of getting a Canelo fight or another significant fight. Vadim K. Team made it clear that if Ramirez wants to face Bivol on December 11th, a lucrative offer is there for them. And I feel more inclined to believe the Bivol people than the Zurdo Ramirez people because at light heavyweight, Bivol's the one with the resume. Bivol's the one holding a title. He's the champion. He's the proven guy at this weight. Whereas Zurdo Ramirez, he's been sitting on his hands, pussyfooting around, being indecisive.
Resume for resume, Bivol's is better.
Dimitri Bivol has faced better fighters in just 18 fights. 18 fights than Zurdo Ramirez has in 42 fights. 42 fights spread out through 2 weight classes. His resume was paper thin at super middleweight, and it's still paper thin at light heavyweight.
Who's the best guy he fought at super middleweight?
I'd have to say it's Jesse Hart of Philadelphia. Jesse Hart, who he fought 2 times as a super middleweight, the same Jesse Hart that went up there to light heavyweight and got bullied by Joe Smith Jr. That's the same Joe Smith Jr. that Dimitri Bivol beat easy.
So who's the best guy Zurdo beat at light heavyweight?
At light heavyweight, I'd have to say Sullivan Barrera, though that's not saying much because Sullivan Barrera is a common opponent between them. It's just that Dimitri Bivol, he beat him first. And he beat him in a time when Sullivan Barrera was doing a lot better than he was when Zurdo fought him. When Dimitri Bivol beat Sullivan Barrera, he had just come off of a victory over Joe Smith Jr. and Felix Valera, as opposed to when Zurdo Ramirez fought Sullivan Barrera. When Zurdo fought Sully, Sully was coming off a loss to Jesse Hart.
So it's safe to say Bivol beat a better version of Barrera.
And it's safe to say that Dimitri Bivol has proven more in 18 fights, just 18 fights, than Zurdo has in 42 fights. 42 fights spread out through 2 weight classes. You ask me,
Is Zurdo Ramirez really after this fight?
and I'm not sure. I'm not sure because the signs aren't there. The track record, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? Zurdo's.
2 weight classes, 42 fights.
The best name on his entire resume is the name of Jesse Hart. Jesse Hart, who was bullied by Joe Smith Jr., Joe Smith Jr., who was beaten by Dimitri Bivol, among several others, Jean Pascal,
Bivol beat him too.
and that was before Jean Pascal went on that tier, beating Badu Jack and Marcus Brown. Before all of that took place, Dimitri Bivol won a decision against that same Jean Pascal. I mean, the resumes, they speak for themselves, and the resumes speak to...
They speak to the matchmaking.
Dimitri Bivol is a guy who in 18 fights, he's been matched pretty tough, whereas the same can't be said for Zurdo Ramirez. In 42 fights, the best guy he's ever fought is Jesse Hart.
So why are we supposed to believe that Dimitri's stuck in you?
You who ain't even ranked with the WBA. I mean, you've been with Golden Boy Promotions for most of 2021, and they still haven't gotten you a rank with that sanctioning body, that organization that he holds a title with? I'm not buying it. Finally, per tweet from Michael Benson, Canelo Alvarez asked if he's looking to prove a point to Caleb Plant on Saturday night. Canelo said, "It's personal, yes, but I don't have anything to prove to him. He's gonna feel what I have to prove, but I don't have anything to prove to him." Quite right. Canelo Alvarez has very quickly become this division's unified champion at a time where the division stood divided, where fighters like Caleb Plant and David Benavidez, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, they could have unified long before Canelo Alvarez got there, but they sat on their hands, they waited, and they got in line, single file, for the Canelo Alvarez sweepstakes, and we are on the last leg of that Canelo Alvarez sweepstakes.
This is it.
This one's for all the marbles. And while Canelo Alvarez has nothing to prove to a guy like Caleb Plant, whose best win is Jose Uzcategui.
What's Jose Uzcategui's best win?
That's a good question. Even for me, a diehard boxing fan that follows the sport quite closely, and I couldn't tell you. What Canelo Alvarez means to prove to Caleb Plant is that there are levels to the game. Caleb Plant, who's putting on a brave face, putting his best foot forward, and giving it a go. Caleb Plant, who has to believe in himself when no one else believes in him.
Mike Tyson doesn't.
Mike Tyson thinks that Canelo Alvarez is going to beat the shit out of Caleb Plant, the way that most people do. And to that, Caleb Plant hit back by mentioning the Buster Douglas fight. The Buster Douglas fight that was recorded as one of the biggest upsets, if not the biggest upset, in boxing history, with the difference being that that situation is no parallel for this situation. Because
Two situations are nothing alike.
I mean, unless Canelo Alvarez is held up in a hotel room treating his nose to that booger sugar, taking his pick of Japanese prostitutes, concubines, I don't see what the fuck the Buster Douglas fight has to do with the Canelo Alvarez fight.
Caleb was just in a hurry to say anything.
He just wanted something to say and he said it. Even if the parallel doesn't apply. Even if the puzzle pieces, they don't fit.
PBC shows are holding out hope that Caleb can upset the plans for Canelo.
Nothing would please them more than for Caleb Plant to upset the apple cart for Canelo and to pull this off. This miracle win, this big upset. It's been a tough year for the PBC fanatics, for that faction of boxing fans.
Yeah, they just had to watch Wilder get the shit beat out of him.
Again, after spending the better portion of a year, a little over a year, closer to 2 years, blowing smoke up everybody's ass about glove tampering and conspiracy theories. And in the end, none of it mattered. Still got his fucking ass kicked. So this...
Yeah, they got a lot riding on this.
I don't want to be presumptuous, and I don't think that Caleb Plant is a bad fighter. He would easily be one of the best scalps for any other super middleweight in the super middleweight division. Any other super middleweight not named Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez, whose body of work far exceeds anything anyone else is doing anywhere at or around these weights. This will be the third unbeaten champion that Canelo Alvarez takes on in just 12 months.
You let these guys tell it, and they'll tell you that they're matching him soft.
So who else out there is taking on this many champions this often in a 12-month window, a 12-month time frame? You tell me, who else out there is on a schedule like Canelo Alvarez's schedule? It speaks for itself.
Caleb's not a bad fighter.
But neither was Billy Joe Saunders or Callum Smith before him.
Caleb's not a bad fighter.
He's not a bad fighter, but he's not head and shoulders above Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith either. He hasn't distinguished himself from those champions. He hasn't separated himself from them, amassing a robust enough body of work to where there's a clear distinction between Caleb and everybody else. No, he hasn't done that.
But Canelo has.
And that's what he means to prove on Saturday night, not because he has to, but because he wants to. He wants to become this division's undisputed champion. He wanted to fight 4 times in the course of 12 months, and he wants to do it again next year. He does what he wants to do because he's earned the right to do so, more so than everyone else. And that's why there are levels to the game.
That's what Caleb Plant's going to find out on Saturday night.
That's what Canelo Alvarez is talking about. That's what he means to prove, and it's not because he has to. It's just because he wants to.